Okay, saluton, hello, good afternoon, good morning even, good morning. Thank you for coming to listen to me. My name's Tim Morley. I'm going to be talking about Springboard to Languages, which was a project of the Esperanto Association of Britain, whereby a number of people, including myself, were teaching Esperanto in primary schools in the UK. Not as an after-school club, but in the classroom to the full class in curriculum time. This seems to surprise lots of people. First, that it happens at all, and second, that it happens in Britain, but there we go. It was great. I'm going to tell you a bit about it. It's not a new idea. This kind of idea of teaching Esperanto as a first foreign language has been around for almost as long as Esperanto itself. There have been numerous other trials and studies over the decades to attempt to do the same thing, to teach Esperanto as a first foreign language. I'm going to talk a little bit about those later. Jan Figel, who I think has left us unfortunately, has just said, "We need a different, new, innovative approach to multilingualism in Europe," I quote. And oh, here's one. It's been mentioned by Benny Lewis on his blog, which you might have read, and numerous others. So what's coming up? The next 45 minutes will bring us a stolen introduction. I've borrowed the introduction to my talk from a guy called Anthony Lauder from the Polyglot conference a few years ago. So thanks, Anthony. I'm going to talk a bit about Esperanto specifically. What's so special about Esperanto itself as a first foreign language? Why use Esperanto? Why not use Latin? Why not use French? I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience of using Esperanto in the classroom. A little bit about scientific proof of all of this, and finally a bit of time for a Q&A at the end. So that's what's coming. Let's crack on. So first of all, the stolen introduction. Anthony Lauder gave this brilliant two-step plan, two-step method for learning 5 foreign languages. It's dead simple. It goes like this. Step 1, speak 4 languages already, and step 2, add 1. It's dead easy, you see. When you've done the first step, step 2, it's dead straightforward, you see, it's dead easy. Which of those two looks like the hard step? Okay, it's step 1, obviously. So let's break that down a little bit, okay? Here's a 2-step plan for speaking 4 foreign languages, okay? Step 1, you speak 3 languages already, and step 2, you add 1, okay? Which is the hard step there? And obviously we can carry on with this, and it keeps going until we get to its logical conclusion. Magical 2-step method for learning a foreign language. Step 1, speak 0 foreign languages already, and then step 2, add 1. Now, which is the hard step? Step 2 is the hard step. Getting started is the hard bit. You're all polyglots, that's why you're here. For you to pick up another language now, I'm going to guess, I think you would all agree, it's going to be far easier for you now than it was starting your first language, however many years ago it was. That's a generally accepted truth. I don't think that's controversial. But that first language, starting to learn your first foreign language, is a huge challenge. And every country, certainly in Europe, has languages on the curriculum in schools. School children spend at least 4 or 5 years, sometimes 8 or 10 years, compulsory. They're obliged to learn a foreign language for all of that time. Often it's English, it may be other languages as well. How many of them can be said to actually competently speak the language at the end of that? Some do, of course. We do. Hey! Wonderful for us. I would suggest that we're the minority, unfortunately. For an awful lot of kids, all of that instruction doesn't actually amount to very much actual useful skill and capacity, which is unfortunate. Now, if we're going to start learning a foreign language, why not start with the easiest one? Why not start with one that was specifically constructed to be dead straightforward and easy to learn? It's called Esperanto. And it does a great job of it. Now again, Jan Figel mentioned Latin in that role. And traditionally, of course, the argument for Latin is that if you master Latin, then it gives you a framework that you can apply to numerous other languages, certainly the related Latin languages, French, Spanish, Romanian, Italian, and so on, but even for other languages further afield as well. The structure of Latin gives you this fantastic framework as a reference for all this other language study. And that's true, I don't disagree with that, but it's a bit like saying, if you train to be a commercial pilot in a 747, you'll pick up some tips for your driving test. That's probably true as well, but if the aim is to get a driving license, starting to learn to fly a plane is not the best way to go about it. And if the aim is to speak French or Spanish or Russian or English as a foreign language, starting with Latin, to me, doesn't seem to make that much sense. If you want to study Latin, fantastic, go and do it. It's a great thing to know. But as a means to an end, as a general topic for everybody to start with, I don't really see the logic of that. So we start with the easiest one, Esperanto. So what's so special about Esperanto? I'm going to come to that in just a second. Quick word about Springboard itself. This project, to put this theory into practice in the UK, was created by Angela Tellier, the project leader, who created the entire course and on behalf of the Esperanto Association of Britain. It was funded by the Esperanto Association of Britain for 5 years, so they paid for schools to adopt the programme to have an Esperanto teacher, such as myself, to go into the school, to teach the kids Esperanto, but also to train the teachers. So the idea was that it would become self-sustaining. After a couple of years of my presence in the school, teaching the kids but training the teachers as well, I will be able to withdraw and leave the teachers to continue the teaching. That works to an extent, but unfortunately only to an extent, mostly just because of staff turnover. Probably the most enthusiastic adopter of the programme spent 2 or 3 years teaching Esperanto to her classes and doing a fantastic job, way better than I ever managed, because I was only there 45 minutes twice a week. She was there all day, every day with her class, and put Esperanto in all day. Bits of Esperanto in the maths lesson, in the English lesson, calling the register, saying goodbye at the end of the day. And the kids got loads better Esperanto from her than they did from me. And then she retired. Now, I can't criticise her for retiring. That's fine. She's worked hard all of her life, but it kind of killed the Springboard in that school. At another school, we had a young male teacher who was super enthusiastic, who spent a whole year working hard on it. He got quite a good level of Esperanto, and then moved to New Zealand. Oh, God. So it was it could self-sustain, but it would need more sustained input on a broader scale than just a small number of schools that we had. We taught Esperanto in public state primary schools in the UK, and the whole programme was evaluated by the University of Manchester, and there was a publication at the end hang on, I have it here, I'll find it in the end, resuming the results from the programme. So, can I have a quick look at what's involved in language learning on a simple level, and why Esperanto is so suitable for this. We need vocabulary, we need grammar, and we acquire skills. Under vocabulary, we learn about morphology, we learn about building words, we learn about, we see cognates, familiar words in one language that you recognise from another language, maybe from your own language, or if you've already learned one foreign language, you see words in a new language, you go, oh yeah, I can guess what that one means because it looks like this. There are false friends, of course, but having lots of cognates clearly helps. On the grammar, I've picked two aspects of grammar. Obviously, grammar is far bigger than this, but noun cases feature a lot in many European languages, and verb conjugations. Again, important feature in a lot of European languages, and Esperanto helps you to start getting the hang of these, at least to become aware of them. And the skills, of course, reading and writing, listening and speaking. When you learn any language, you're going to learn all of this. Of course, there's more to learning to languages too. There's semantics, there's pragmatics, there's all sorts of other things too. This is a basic run-through, but learning any language you're going to come across all of these things. You're going to need to understand all of these things. So why not do it using the simplest language first, to learn about these things, to raise your language awareness. Use the simple language to learn all of these things. We're going to, a quick demonstration. You're going to learn a bit of Esperanto. If you already speak Esperanto, keep quiet for the next few minutes, please. I want the non-Esperantists in the audience to give me some Esperanto words. So, 2-minute Esperanto lesson. Are you ready? Here we've got the word mangi. What does it mean? To eat. Thank you. It's the verb to eat. Okay. And we can we can keep the root mange and add different endings to it. So we've got a mangiajo. Here is mangiajo. What's mangiajo? It's a meal, food. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so jen mangiajo. Tio estas mangiajo. Jen mangejo. Tio estas mangejo. La ejo por mangi. Jen la mangejo. Poste jen mangilo. 1, 2, 3, 4 mangiloi. 4 mangiloi. All of them together you can call mangilaro. All of them together is the mangilaro, the group of them, all the cutlery together, and each one is a mangilo, a thing for eating with, cutlery. Jen? Oh, sure, there's a word for forco, kai tranquillo, kai culero. We've got those words too, but a piece of cutlery is a mangilo. Yeah, okay, I'll come back to that in just a second. Mangigas. Ig here, the suffix that we've put in grammatical terms, it's the causative. We've added an agent. Do la bebo mangigas la patro. No. Shh. La bebo mangigas la patron. So, right, feeding, exactly. We've turned eating into feeding. Now, so hang on, I've got one more. Oh yeah, an uyo. An uyo is a container. Do jen uyo por la mangiloi. You can put all those together and call it a mangiluyo. Mangiluyo. The container for the cutlery container. Mangiluyo. Jen. So far, right, okay, I've given you a load of things to memorize. We could memorize those just as easily in Esperanto as we could in French or in German or in English. But we can do it, we can reuse everything you learn in Esperanto, you can reuse 1,000,000 times. You're going to give me some words now, I've deliberately chosen a very closely related route, but these things work across the entire language. What's that? Kio estas tio? Tio estas trinkejo, juste. Okay, you've just given me the word for a cafe in Esperanto. You didn't know that word, but you've just told me. Kio estas tio? Trinkujo, dankon, trinkujo. It's a drink container. Exactly right, trinkujo. What's that? Trincajo, juste, dankon. Tio estas trincajo. It's a drink. Yep, exactly that. And what's the guy on the left doing? Li trinkigas shin. What's the English word for that? A minute ago we had mangigas. So mangi is to eat, mangigi is to feed. So li trinkigas shin. Come on, what's the word? Sorry? To water. To water. Lovely idea, but no. What's the word for that? I don't know a word for that. You now know a word in Esperanto, which you immediately found. You told me the word. You don't even know the English word. How long have you been studying English? How long have you been studying Esperanto? 2 minutes. You've already found an Esperanto word that you can't immediately say in English. I don't know an English word for that. You just have to say, he's making her drink, he's helping her drink, or so, yeah. But you have to work around it. And this comes up absolutely all over the place in Esperanto. You can reuse every element that you learn, recombine it with new things that you learn. So every time you learn one new element, one new root, one new word, you don't just get one word, you get an entire family of words because you can recombine it with everything that you already know. So the rate of acquiring new vocabulary or new expressive capacity is way, way, way faster than in English or French or, well, any other language certainly that I've attempted to study. Way faster. Each element gives you, if you think of it as a spreadsheet, each cell doesn't just give you one thing, it gives you a whole new column or a whole new row. And it's magic. There we go. And I've just shown you I've just shown you 5 or 6 of these suffixes. There are 30-something of them. So yes, they take a bit of learning, but each one is super useful for making hundreds and thousands of words. And this is very, very common in Esperanto in a conversation that people just, I say make up words. They're not just throwing together random letters and expecting people to understand, but coining new kunmetajoi, how do I say kunmetajoi? Compound, new arrangements of these Lego blocks in a new way that probably never said before, but it just comes out naturally and everyone goes, oh yeah, okay, I understood that, and it flows naturally. It's great. There we go. So in terms of vocabulary, learning Esperanto goes significantly faster than any other language I've come across, and teaches learners about morphology, about building words, about elements of words and how they interact with each other, which may never, it's the kind of thing that people kind of understand from their own language, but this makes it explicit and thus helps with other language learning. And of course, cognates. We saw mangi and trinki, you all immediately knew what they meant. And Esperanto is packed full of Latin roots and Greek roots and Germanic roots. So if you know some of that family, even one language from any of those families, you'll recognize a lot of the roots, which will help you to acquire Esperanto, and the words that you learn in Esperanto will help you to acquire other languages afterwards. In terms of grammar, noun cases and verb conjugations. Noun cases, there's only one in Esperanto, one extra ending, with the accusative case for direct objects. It's something that trips lots of people up, but by having to learn that one case, we at least introduce the idea that languages have cases. It's something you've got to think about. English sort of does, but only a little bit. Essentially, doesn't use cases. So, for English speakers learning Esperanto, accusative it's a bit of a sticking point, but it makes, in terms of language awareness, it makes you aware that in some languages you need to do this kind of thing. If you then stumble on Finnish, well, you've at least come across the idea. It's an introduction to the idea that cases exist without an overload of 6 cases or 25 cases to memorize. So there's a minimum of memorization to acquire the knowledge, the linguistic awareness of that language feature. Verb conjugations in English, verb conjugations in English are relatively simple, certainly compared to French or Spanish and so on, but an order of magnitude simpler in Esperanto. It still needs to be thought about, but only in terms of past, present or future. It doesn't matter whether it's first, second, third person, singular or plural, it's all the same. And the past, present and past, present and future are exactly the same for every verb in the language by definition. So this is a fairly typical weather forecast from where I live. Hieraŭ mercredo pluvis. Hodiaŭ ĵaŭdo pluvas. Kaj morgaŭ vendredo pluvos. Yesterday it was raining. Today it's raining. Tomorrow it's going to rain again. But with a single word, pluvis, pluvas, and pluvos, is, as, and os, you've got the past, present, and future of every verb in the entire language. Move on, we can do something else more interesting now. We don't need to learn, oh, first conjugation goes like this. Okay, so the first person, the second person, the third person, and the first person plural is like this, and the first person, second person plural is like this, and the third person plural. That's the first conjugation. Now we've got the second conjugation, which is what a lot of language learning goes like. It's like, what's all this for, sir? He's like, you just learn it. Okay. He's asked, I have a book at home that's that thick of the Becherel of French verbs, over 100 verb tables that covers 10,000 verbs in the language. The entire book can be summarized on half a sheet of A4 for Esperanto. Now you've got it, move on, do something more interesting. And then we get beyond just memorizing stuff to actually creating stuff. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Hang on. Oh yeah, so actually, I'm going to put that up now. This is Bloom's taxonomy, used a lot in education, where in classroom teaching, in any kind of teaching and learning, generally you start at the bottom, you start by memorizing stuff. Once you've memorized some stuff, you get some element of understanding. These are still low-order thinking skills. There's no processing going on. It's just memorization and repeating. And this is pretty much how everybody starts learning a foreign language. You learn a few set phrases. Hello, how are you? Fine, thanks. What's your name? Where do you come from? You learn the set phrases. Later, you might start to break them down and see which words do what and why that one's got that ending on and so on. But to start with, it's just memorizing and repeating. As you get more knowledge of the language, you work up the order of thinking skills, applying what you know, analysing, evaluating, creating. I could do another whole hour on this, but a lot of language learning, particularly in schools, gets stuck at the bottom. It's all about memorising and repeating. And even I've just been helping my nephew with a GCSE exam, and in the oral, it was mostly about memorising. He memorised most of what he was going to say and just sort of blurted it out. It's a shame. It would be good to get way beyond that, get onto creating, get onto using the language, not just memorising and repeating, but that's what happens. But by developing these skills, by learning Esperanto first, you do get to these skills. You get to develop skills of reading and writing and speaking and listening. And those skills themselves take work, take development. Why not use the simple tool to learn those skills in your first foreign language? Get a feeling for what it's like to be able to express yourself in a foreign language. And that itself is a huge motivator to go and want to learn another one. There we go. Right, where are we up to? I did the stolen introduction. That was all what's special about Esperanto. So, Esperanto in the classroom. Esperanto in the classroom. We took the group of one of the groups of kids that we were teaching Esperanto had a school trip to an owl sanctuary. Sort of rescued owls and so on. And they learned all about owls and about what they eat and how they live and they're nocturnal creatures and so on. And they came back and they wrote all about it in English. And then we threw a lot of vocabulary at them. This is how you say owl, this is how you say mouse, this is how you say wing, this is how you say fly, this is how you say rescued, this is it, and so on. Write something in Esperanto. No model sentences. No, copy this down or put an accent on that one. No, just write about it in Esperanto. And a significant number of the class were capable of putting some sentences together in the foreign language that they've only been studying for about a year about their experience from the day before, looking at these owls. Now, I can't imagine that ever happening in a French class, or a German class, or a Russian class, or a Latin class. There's just too much complication, too much grammar going on to be able to do that for young kids with only a year of study. But this happened in Esperanto. We've got niai bekoi estas tre akraj, our beaks are very sharp. Niai okuloj estas tre grandai, our eyes are very big. And fairly simple sentences, sure, but put together by the kids with very few mistakes. That's amazing. I've never seen that in any of my French classes. Just doesn't happen, I'm afraid. This also doesn't happen in any of my French classes. A kid in one of my classes, I got heckled. He shouted out in the middle of the class and made everybody laugh. Now, okay, yeah, that does sometimes happen in other lessons, and you've got to tell people to be quiet and sit down and behave themselves. This kid did it in Esperanto, which was amazing, right? 3 months into a course in Esperanto, he blurted something out in the middle of the lesson in Esperanto, which itself was amazing, and the whole class understood it and laughed, which is even more amazing. Right? This was, we were doing an activity where I give instructions, so we're using imperative verbs, and the class responds by doing what I ask them to do and telling me what they're doing. So we've got present tense verbs in there as well. So I say, staru, and they all stand up and they say, mi staras. And I say, dansu, and they all go, mi dansas, mi dansas. And I go, cesu, and they go, mi cesas. And I go, okay, silentu. And they all go, mi silentas. Is that this one at the back shouts, mi ne silentas. Right, he shouts out. Now, I hadn't even taught them how to make negative phrases. He just heard that. He'd heard me saying ne faruti or ne. He just heard ne from me, just picked it up and went with it. And called out in grammatically perfect Esperanto, mi ne silentas. And everybody understood exactly what he meant and laughed. Which left me in the position of, do I tell him off or do I give him a medal? Because insolent behaviour on the one hand, but language-wise, brilliant. So I had to pretend to be annoyed and went, hey, vi, silentu. And he went, okay, mi silentas. But that was spontaneous in the foreign language. Never, ever happened in my French classes. And that's not because I don't enjoy teaching French. I do. It's not because the kids don't enjoy the lessons. I believe they do. But it's just never going to happen. It's too difficult. The number of things that you need to know beforehand, before you can come out with that in French, is huge. It's huge. Nobody would just manage to pick that up from hearing me saying it, work out how to make a negative and turn taisez-vous into je ne me tais pas. There's so much going on there in terms of grammar. It's just never going to happen. Esperanto allows us to get beyond memorizing stuff and get into creatively using it and making the teacher look silly at the same time, which is always good if you can get away with it. Cool. So, there we go. We did those. We've done Esperanto in the classroom. Okay, scientific proof. Now, as I say, this idea that teaching Esperanto as an aid to learning other languages has been around for a long time. I could cite studies from 1922 onwards that I'm aware of that attempted to show this, that if you spend, let's say you've got 4 years and you want to get the best level you can in, let's just pick an example, let's say German. The theory is it's worth spending a year and a half or so on Esperanto first, and then spending the remaining 2.5 years on German, and you're likely to get a better level of German from that than you would from 4 years of study of German. It sounds counterintuitive, but the idea is that all the skills and the knowledge that you pick up through Esperanto, the language awareness that you get through Esperanto, boosts your following learning and makes it so much easier that the time that you spend, you get back in spades. It seems intuitively sensible, but in terms of scientific proof, anyone that tells you that it's scientifically proven that Esperanto has this effect is either lying or deluded, or possibly both. There's no scientific proof at all. Springboard was one of the biggest projects that I'm aware of that's attempted to test this. Over 5 years, we had academic assessment of the children at the beginning of the process, in the middle, and then after the 5 years, when the primary school kids had gone on to secondary school, we tested the whole cohort of the secondary school. So that was the kids that had learned some Esperanto in one primary school, comparing their level of language awareness with kids from other primary schools who are now all in the same class in senior school. And so there's a bit of control there. There are controls we can check against. But from a scientific point of view, it's still far too small to be significant. Let's imagine for a moment that the kids who learned Esperanto were way, way better than all the other kids in language awareness, in picking up new language. Let's imagine that was the case. It wasn't. Let's imagine it was. That still doesn't prove anything about Esperanto. Maybe they just had an inspirational first language teacher. I am hypothesizing, this isn't what happened. But if I was the most amazing language teacher in the world, maybe that was enough to make them all super enthusiastic about learning languages. I could have taught them Russian with the same effect. It doesn't prove anything about Esperanto. So from a scientific point of view, there are holes in all of the studies. Very often the groups were, not in Springboard, but in some of the previous studies, the groups who studied Esperanto were self-selected. So the people who wanted to take part in the Learn Esperanto first experiment were compared with people who had no interest in taking part in it. Well, that's not a valid experiment either. So the experimental design is all wrong. The numbers are usually quite small. To actually test and have concrete data to say, yes, we have a statistically significant effect here that we can prove, look, this works, would need a way, way bigger project than Springboard. We would need we'd need a local authority who's responsible for a couple of hundred schools, imposing it on all of the schools, not just on the ones that volunteer for it, and then have enough personnel to be able to go in and teach all these kids and have the teachers learn it and have it as a compulsory part of it across the board, and then have assessments and so on to attempt to find results. That's never been done. So I'll just say again, anyone that says, oh yeah, it's scientifically proven that Esperanto, no it isn't. No it isn't. It's a reasonable hypothesis. It seems to make sense, and personal experience suggests that there's something to it. But with my scientific hat on, I've got to say, the plural of anecdote is not data. It's a great idea, and I definitely support further investigation of this in terms of national education systems, and as a personal choice, absolutely, go for it. Recommend it to people, brilliant, yeah. But from a scientific point of view, remains to be proven, shall we say. Further work is recommended. And that is most of what I have to say. I'm just going to point out a couple of other things that are coming up. Friday at 4 p.m. we've got How to Learn Other Languages Through Esperanto, Russian and French, by these two people at the back there. Hello, give us a wave. Woo! And Charlotte and Alexei, I shall be there. I look forward to that. And we've also got Sunday at 3 o'clock, Had I Known Esperanto Was This Easy, by Mr. Tim Owen over here. Woo! So go to those if you liked what you heard today. And if you want to hear more from me, I did a TEDx talk 5 years ago now, which is on YouTube. Just search for Tim Morley Esperanto, you'll find it, where I talk about Springboard. You'll hear, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll recognise a few things that I've said today from that talk, but it is significantly different. It's worth a look, in my humble opinion. There we go. So that's about all I have to say today. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I can give you the microphone. First, I just wanted to say that Tim's talk has been moved to Saturday. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, right. Not Sunday at 3, Saturday at 10. Okay.
I have a question and a follow-on question. How old were the kids you were teaching Esperanto to?
Okay, it was year 3 and 4, so they're 7, 8, 9 years old.
Oh, okay. I was wondering whether at that age they were asking themselves where and how and when they would be able to practice Esperanto, but they were probably too young to worry about that.
Okay, for a lot of the kids, yes. They just said, oh, what's on the timetable? Okay, we'll do this, and no questions asked. Some of the parents were skeptical, shall we say, like, why? What are you teaching this to my kids for? Why are we wasting time on this? We could be doing more. We could be doing maths. We could be doing a useful language that somebody speaks. And certainly from some parents, yeah, we had that reaction. I did an open evening presentation where I talked to the parents about the reasons for doing it, laying the groundwork for future language learning, even if the kids never meet another Esperanto speaker in their lives, which for the majority is probably going to be the case, frankly. I firmly believe that the experience that they had is still valuable. It was an enjoyable and inclusive language learning experience. Most of the kids in the class, majority of the kids in the class made good progress in Esperanto at their own speed, but most of them did. If we'd been doing French, we would have memorized some sentences. That would have been about it. As it was, everybody got some level. Some people memorized some sentences, some people got a bit further, some people were writing whole paragraphs in, if not grammatically perfect, at least perfectly understandable Esperanto. That's amazing, and that experience hopefully will inspire them to further future language learning. Thanks for the question.
Hi Tim, my name is Aidan from Ireland, and with the latest data on language learning 2016 and into 2017, in Europe, Britain and Ireland are in the bottom 3 countries at language learning. So Greece is the worst, and Britain and Ireland are the second and third worst at learning languages. So what do you think that we can do as for our countries, basically, that we can be a bit better at learning languages?
I suppose there's 2 ways to answer that question. Do you mean what can you do, or what could you do if you were Minister of Education? Because it's not the same answer. What can you and me do? God. But honest answer, not a great deal. We can be the change that we want to see. We can model multilingualism in ways that people can see, where people can see that you're getting value from being able to speak different languages. Don't go out and tell people, I can speak this. And like Judy was saying before, don't go out and tell people, I can speak 6 languages. You know, go out and tell people what you did when you were speaking Irish, or when you were speaking Czech, or whatever it is. And the happening to speak Czech is just that's the means to the end. And have people see and understand and appreciate that there is personal value in being able to speak another language, and that it's somewhat achievable. As far as national policy is concerned, it's not just an education question, it's a mind share thing. I think I'm right in saying many British and Irish people just don't see any value in being able to speak a foreign language. Everyone speaks English, what's the point? And, well, even the most optimistic figures from like the British Council, when they talk about English around the world, they talk about 1 billion people speak English. What they mean is 1 billion people are learning English at some level or another, but that still leaves 6 billion people who, by that account, have never had an English lesson in their lives. So 6 out of 7 people in the world don't speak any English at all. Now, the people that you're likely to come across in business and travel and tourism and so on, yeah, lots of them are going to speak some level of English. But that doesn't mean that there's no point in you speaking their language. If you want to sell something to them, and we do, you have a far better chance if you can sell it to them in their language than turning up and going, so, right, you will sit and listen to me in my language. If I can connect with you in your language, I have a far better chance of a warm reception than trying to use English. I hope that sort of answers your question as best I can. Right at the back, can you? Go on, go on. Microphone's on its way.
Skeptical about the need for Esperanto. I like to learn languages, and I always said there's no Esperanto land that I can visit. I ran into Ruslan out there, and he said, no, you got to come to this session.
Right.
And I'm glad I did. And so I just want to make the comment that what you're saying, like as someone who learns languages, and I realize that people who have never learned another language, whether they're children or grown-ups,
yep.
They don't believe they can. And that's the major obstacle to learning other languages.
Yep.
Once you have the sense that you can do it,
Yep.
then you're well on your way.
Yes.
And I hadn't really heard that. I think of the people who push Esperanto because we're going to fight Anglo-Saxon imperialism. And I always thought that was such a stupid argument. It ain't going to happen, you know.
That's only on the weekend.
But the idea that, because kids will learn anything at school. You say you got to learn this, they learn it.
Yep.
You know, trigonometry, who's going to use it, you know. So I think that's a very good argument. And I come out of this persuaded that Esperanto is a good idea. If you can get people to turn on to the idea that, hey, I can learn languages, I think you achieve a lot. That's my comment. Thanks to Ruslan and to you.
Well, thank you, Ruslan. Thanks for bringing him along. And yeah, thank you for the comment. Brilliant. Yes, I've convinced a person. Woo! Excellent. Any other questions before we finish?
Okay, maybe we have time for one more quick
Okay,
question.
one more, last question. Oh, was a question over here? Oh, yeah, go ahead. There you go.
I've seen your TED Talk as well, so if I ever answer any questions about Esperanto and Quora, I always quote it, so thank you for that. So you said that the schools volunteered to take part in the program?
Yes.
I was wondering, how did you go about convincing them, or what were their reasons for volunteering?
Good question. We contacted a whole load of schools. Most of them completely ignored us. The only places where we managed to get in were schools where the teacher was going to be involved. So me and one or two other Esperanto teachers were already known in the school. Either our kids were there, or in the main school where I showed the photos of the owls and all of that. That was from a school where I was already working in the school doing an after-school French club. And so they knew me, they knew I knew some stuff about languages, they knew they'd see me interacting with the kids, they were happy with me. And so I went to them and said, okay, we've got this innovative language program and it's funded. I was like, oh, right, excellent, where do we sign? It was still quite a brave step from the head, because she also had to kind of take responsibility for the decision as far as the parents are concerned. And I had questions about, what's this language? Nobody speaks this, why are we learning this? And she had some of the same questions as well. She kind of sometimes passed them on to me, but it was a somewhat brave decision on her part as well, but she went with it. And once it was working in one school, the head teachers all know each other, they all see each other, and so she talked us up, and we got into several other schools, mostly through contact with the head teachers, I believe. Cool. Thank you very much then. I think we're out of time. So if you have any other questions, do come and talk to me outside anytime you see me. But thank you very much for coming and listening. Cheers.